first of all, thank you for taking out the time and attending this session. So, we were all having a very candid discussion outside as to how the world of cybersecurity has become more and more relevant, not only from an economic perspective, but even from a geopolitical perspective, right? So, with that, just maybe a quick caveat, since this session is being recorded, that all the views which are being expressed are personal and not representing the organizations to which each of us belong. So with that, probably let me kickstart things. We only have 45 minutes and we want to all hear to all the interesting perspectives from the participants. So maybe the first question I would like to kind of kick off things with is that what has been the role of the GCC when it comes to the global cybersecurity landscape, right? And more importantly, how has that evolved, right? So where is it going, right? And maybe when we are talking about it, maybe some examples of co-creation, wherein things have been co-created between the GCC as well as the on-site organization, or some example of innovation or something which was built in the GCC which had a very significant global impact, right? So would love to maybe hear the thoughts of everyone on that point, and perhaps starting off with a quick introduction as well. So Ram, may I request you to start things off?
Sure. Thanks Arab. I'm Ramchandra Kulkarni. I head technology risk for Goldman Sachs in India. I also co-chair the India Operational Risk Council within Goldman Sachs. How do we see the role and how has it evolved? Probably the evolution bit takes a bit more importance in terms of how is it going over the last few quarters, and what do we see going forward. Two or three things probably which is important. The first is in terms of the ownership of specific programs, which wasn't the case earlier. If you look at 6, 12, 18 months back, or probably 3 years back, there were like 2 examples. Now we have 20 examples, 18 examples of people owning global programs from India. From a GS context, from our Hyderabad office, from our Bangalore office. That's something that's increasingly happening. And it's a result of both mindset, culture, number of things, organization sponsorship, number of things drive that. Second is in terms of leadership. The leadership here having a say in global leadership sessions, our budgeting process, our priorities process. So it's not like we are just receiving here. We are actively participating in that process, and in most cases influencing that. I think that is happening in a fairly big way, which wasn't the case, let's say, 3 to 4 years back. The third is in terms of when we look at what was happening 3, 4 years back, it was largely execution. Somebody used to define and somebody used to kind of manage all the risks. Currently, what we are seeing is a significant portion of, obviously we still do the execution, but managing the execution risk, it could be, it could be in terms of location strategy, in terms of operating models. All that definition is done by the GCC leads here. Which is a significant shift in terms of how we are looking. And the last one I would end at this point is in terms of performance management and how do we do talent management. What is also happening is, let's say again 3, 4 years back, it was largely India team, and India team used to get rated and evaluated. Now it's a single performance tree across the globe. So why is it a big deal? It is a big deal because the people sitting in London, sitting in New York, sitting in Dallas feel equally invested in terms of our careers of our people here, not just me crying out loud every month. So that has made a significant difference. And when I checked with our peer organizations, in some of the organizations it is happening, some of the organization it's in discussion. So obviously it also depends on the maturity of how the GCC has evolved. Some are in the country for 10 years, 15 years, some are there for 2 or 3 years. So it depends on how the maturity of the organization has also looked at. So that's what I would say in terms of what is happening, 4 trends for leadership, for operating models, for talent, and managing execution risk.
Thanks. Thanks, Saurabh and Prasad, for having me. Rishi Dhupar, I've been part of MUFG now for a little over 5 years. I head their India GCC, as they call it. We call it hub. We are not a fan of the word GCC terminology. I know it's an industry terminology, but we have multiple delivery hubs, and India is one of them. So to answer Saurabh's specific question, I mentioned this in the session earlier, in the cyberspace, and we call it global network security operations. We must be having about 70, 80 employees in the organization globally, out of which over 90% of them are in India. And when you have that kind of scale and delivery responsibility, you have no option but to be an adult on the table. And I think with that, comes the accountability, the responsibility. I was sharing some examples that every network, so we operate in 10 plus countries, we have over 200 applications, we have almost 24/7 operations. In countries like Australia, we are financial infrastructure. We are critical infrastructure of the Ministry of Finance, right? So from that standpoint, uptime of our applications, very critical. And I think that, is something which all adds up to being the adult of the table, to make sure that we are protecting the franchise, we're protecting the reputation of that country, and so that's our journey. I mean, we are only 5 years into existence, but we set up this global network operations center on day 1. And I think Saurabh was talking about co-build. I think we've gone from that co-build, co-create stage. Now we co-solve and co-run security operations of the organization. So I'll probably hand it over to the other panelists, but that's it from my side, yeah.
Thank you, Saurabh. Hello, everyone. Ashish Malani. I work for MNG Global Services, which is a GCC for MNG, which is an asset management business. I've been in this industry for about 18 years, and I've clearly seen the evolution happening from a pure cost play into becoming a strategic hub for the parent organization as such. We are pretty much like a digital twin for our parent organizations, which makes it equally important to co-create solutions like we were talking about. And I think the other important element, which I think Ram also touched on, is the accountability. So if I look at myself as well, although I've been managing the function for the GCC, but last year, for example, I've taken on a global role as well. So I'm sure there are umpteen number of examples like Ram touched upon, which you will see out there in the industry. I think the key is the parent organizations are definitely seeing a lot of potential, and of course we have lived up to the reputation as well. I know there is a lot of challenge in terms of the resource availability as such, and I'm guessing probably we'll be discussing that as well, so I'll not delve into that. But I think the important thing is evolution in the journey in terms of building solutions. So for example, there are a lot of organizations which are working very closely with their counterparts in the parent organization to come up with solutions and jointly solve the problems that they are facing, be it in terms of cyber and even broader as well. So I think those are some key elements I'll want to add. Over to you, Javed.
Sure, thank you. Hi, my name is Javed. I'm part of TIA India GC. I head cyber and fraud function for TIA GC and part of global cyber and fraud function. So, Saurabh, to answer your question, I believe our colleagues pretty much covered a lot of points, but I've seen a paradigm shift happening in last few years in this industry, where the message is very clear to the GCCs of India that it's no more just an outsourced partner relationship. It's a global organization, and we have a global seat, right? And it's not just global seat for the heck of saying it. And I could see the partnership happening to that level, where we see India team having accountability and a seat on table globally as well, right? Because come what may, the culture of an organization would always have influence over what is the strategy, be it tactical or operational. And culture can eat the strategy in breakfast at any given point of time. So I think I have seen personally, and I'm sure most of you would agree, that there has been a cultural shift in the industry, that it's no more just a place where piecemeal job would come and people would do, and that's it. They'll wait for an order to come and execute. But then ownership, accountability, is now with India. A lot of GCCs are developing solutions, taking decisions independently, and with that is some kind of financial independence is also coming in, some bits and pieces, and we could demonstrate, right? We have talent. We have talent not just to do piecemeal job. I mean, our young generation kids are way ahead. I mean, look at any startups in US. Most of them are India-driven folks. I mean, why can't we do it in India? So over a period of time, I believe we have proved it well that India does have capability to take ownership, accountability, and have new things, have distinguished things built in here, distinguished architects developed from here, and stuff like that. And I think it's now global local ownership, where the partnership is truly one team. It's quite visible in GCC, and although it's an emerging area, but I think we have made a significant progress. And answering your second question, sort of, we see a lot of development global happening, with global partnership, development happening from India, because we have talent. Like, we have a lot of colleges where they are good cybersecurity folks, and industry is not just hiring. So for cyber specifically, industry is not just hiring cyber folks, but they are hiring people from AI background, machine learning. And with this blend, I think we are able to make significant difference to what we bring into the table in terms of value, ownership, and return of investment to what industry looks at India, the way they look at India, and produce immense value to the organization. I think, sort of, if that makes, yeah.
No, thank you so much. So I think that was, I got a lot of ideas and answers, so let me take maybe 10 seconds to quickly recap. I think, Ram, you did it right in the beginning by structuring it into those 4 points. But I think the common themes which I sensed was, first of all, the transfer of ownership of programs. I think talked about transfer of accountability, more leadership and influence coming to GCCs. I think that's a great point. In fact, if I could make out, like, get a whiteboard, the whole shift from execution to managing, right? I think that's a big theme. The one lens we have to put is, of course, the maturity of the GCC. I think, Ram, you also mentioned that. And I think, Javed, you also talked about it, that how, depending upon the age and the level of autonomy which the Indian GCC has, that is a big driver. Thanks, Javed, for touching on the cultural shift part. I think that is very, very relevant. And it has to do with more and more senior leadership and ownership coming in India as well, right? And I think, Rishi, you talked about co-create to co-solve. So I've got another very important point in my book. So now, moving on to the next part, right? I think one thing you touched about was, what are the solutions being created in India, Javed? So maybe I'll start with you this time. If you were to look towards the future, what is the technology that you feel will shape the future of cybersecurity moving forward? And if I were to put a very tactical hat on that question, then where do you think the dollars and pounds of cybersecurity investments will go in the years to come?
Awesome. So interesting question. So actually, I see that industry is moving and adopting AI, and AI is no more something that happens in silos with business independently. Now AI has become a horizontal stack, right? So would it be in cyber, right? So now when we look for people, we might look for people with AI capabilities in cyber. So AI would be a skill set, I think, an investment perspective as well, where we would want to invest, not just in the skill set, but in the technology itself, because it is expensive. There's a lot of hit and trial even now, like there was generative AI, then LLM, then agentic AI, and this would continue. And we need to be part of the bus. If we are not part of bus, we'll be left behind, and adversaries are always ahead, and they would be. So I think AI is one critical area which will have more and more investment, as there would be, some part of investment in IAM, SOC, governance, risk and compliance, application security, cloud security, DevSecOps, and so on and so forth. So AI would also make a piece of pie for its own going forward, and that's going to be, both tactical and strategic. There would be some piece of investment that we would be, leveraging for a long-term 3 to 5 years goal on AI and how do it shape. And then there would be short-term wherein we can see immediate benefit of using AI. So for example, LLM-based threat hunting, like using AI in DevSecOps and early adoption, AI in third-party security, and so on and so forth. So this is proved, right? There are solutions. There are people who are also working on it already. So there would be some investment in these areas. Second, I think, would be quantum computing. Although we see that as near future coming up, but I think readiness has started in the industry. People have started assessing their code base, assessing their infrastructure, assessing their encryption and strength. Are they really resilient enough? Right? And I think some CBOM, cryptographic bill of material, is something that would give you a reflection of, is your code strong enough to withstand any cryptographic, any quantum related attacks, right? So that readiness has started, or if not, it will start certainly for next one and 2 years, and then thereafter there would be, once we get a visibility on what kind of our infrastructure strength is against quantum, then there would be a migration. They would start migrating, like cryptographic strength, right? Encryption strength. There would be new standards like Kyber and Dilithium. So it requires infrastructure to migrate. It requires people with skill set to migrate. So all that migration would happen from maybe 26 and till next 3 to 4 years, because that would take time. So that is second space, I think, where investment would go in, even tactically and strategically. And third would be composite security architecture. Like, world is moving towards API security, right? And something called as the SPIFFE, right? Where the cloud workload security, authentication, authorization on cloud, how does that been taken care of, right? That architecture would attract, some investments going forward, along with other pillars of cybersecurity. So I think some has already started, and in next few years, 2 to 3 years, while things move on, like on cloud, more of API integration, securing API, understanding what is a vulnerability around those areas, that would get some attraction of investment, where it would give a unified view of SaaS application, cloud infrastructure, workloads, on-prem legacy infrastructure. So that consolidation in industry had started, right? And there's where I see down the line few years would be more investment. And last but not least would be, I think, passwordless authentication, FIDO 2.0, Windows Hello is out, we all use it. It's just that the technology is sinking in. And it's easy. We see the adoption is happening not just with the younger generation, but the elderly people as well. So I think these are few areas, Saurabh, where we see some investments happening, and AI would be part and parcel of each of the security vertical, be it IAM, be it SOC, be it application security, and DevSecOps and so on and so forth. So that is what I see, in my opinion, would be investment, tactically and strategically.
Thank you. I think Javed has covered it well in terms of the AI being the key one. I think both in terms of as a defense, but equally to improve the efficiency, because we know the kind of economic environment we are in, and organizations need to do more in terms of not only the businesses adopting AI, but equally we as security professionals also implementing that in our own world. And you shared a number of examples for that. I think the key element maybe I'll want to add on the AI is the explainable AI as well, because a lot of AI models are quite opaque in nature. And I think that's one thing where there will be a lot of investment that will happen to improve the transparency and the trust, as well as I think giving the insights. So there are some movements we are seeing in that space, but I think essentially there is more to happen in that space, and especially with the evolution of some of the AI regulation, we will definitely see investment going in that space as well. So I think that's one, and equally, although it's not necessarily a technology, but in terms of the investment in the talent as well is something that will happen from a cyber standpoint, because we know there is a lot of global shortage. Yes, India has the lowest talent gap in terms of demand and supply, but we need to do a lot more in that space as well. So I think those are the 2 points I'll want to add over and above what Javed covered. Thank you.
Saurabh, slightly different perspective, not necessarily contradict my esteemed panel, but I have a slightly different lens to these 3 parts, right? So, you said, where will investment happen, and is AI the right solution to cyber? I personally feel that any technology which can be democratized in the hands of the end user to protect their digital identity, to protect their organization, their family, their country, I think that is the technology which is the future. AI, of course, AI is omnipresent, but AI today is still boundaryless. It still doesn't have guardrails. So while bad actors will use AI to create cyber risk and cyber threat, the same AI is going to be used as a mitigant. And who knows who will win. And one may win over the other depending upon where they are in the maturity life cycle. So I think that we should look through. It's a double-edged sword. And I think the third part to your question is, where will the dollars go in cyber? I personally feel the dollars should go towards education, awareness, to make that democratization possible and operational at the end of the day, right? So my daughter in grade 6 has a module on cyber risk. How do we take this cyber as a topic and engrave it into our curriculum, irrespective of what degree, diploma you're pursuing? I think that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I would be closer to what Rishi said. Of course, AI is right on the agenda, but a couple of things I would call out, which is apart from AI, is our basic operational rigor, and how do we look at automating things, and how do we become more effective. That is where the dollar is going, one of the topics. Second is in terms of how do we make sure our business divisions are empowered enough to be basically accountable for the risks that they are bringing in. So if we are starting a new business in a X country, Y country, if we are starting a cards business, if we are starting a digital-only bank, what does the business division get in terms of these are the 14 risks that they have, these are the 3 things that they should prioritize. So that takes a significant effort in terms of collating all the data, correlating it, and making sure it is articulated in a way for the businesses, A, to understand, and B, to do something. So that is where a significant portion of our dollars is going. Of course, firewalls, of course, networks, of course, AI. But the two areas which I would call out is these two in terms of operational rigor and the aspect of empowering our businesses.
Awesome. I never expected so many diverse things. So first of all, funnily, just before I was talking to the panel and I said I'll not ask any question on AI. But then nowadays, obviously, that's not a topic you can keep out. But no, great perspective. I think Javed, your perspective about how it's a horizontal now, right? I think great point, and the quantum part as well. Ashish, loved your point about both using it for the defense part as well as the efficiency part, right? Both very relevant. And you gave me a segue to the next question, which I'll pause for now. I'll come back to it. And Rishi, I loved your point about the democratization. I think super important. Just like internet democratized a lot of things, maybe this has the potential to be the next big lever. So I think great point. And of course, it's a tool for both attackers and defenders. So the earlier it becomes available to all, the better it is for us. And Ram, thanks for the point. I think end of the day, while these might still be pies in the sky for a lot of people, but the operational rigor is where a lot of money is going. And the point about empowering the business leaders to have a view of the risk they are taking on. I think it's a great point. Thank you so much. No, I think, so great point on this. Now, one more question, and probably the last question before I kind of open it up to the audience a bit. And thanks, Ashish, for giving me the segue for that. It's end of the day, in India and globally, it's a talent war in cyber right now, right? And I as a consultant, or you as a GCC, and some other product companies outside, as well as all the system integrators, and everyone is fighting for the same talent. I know, by the way, hats off to DSCI. I think they are doing a great job in kind of advancing the agenda of talent as well. I've personally been a beneficiary in my previous role of that. But maybe a question to all my panelists. Time to reveal the secret sauce. That is what we are here for, right? So what is your secret for attracting and retaining the best talent? Anything which you think has worked very well? I mean, be it maybe some kind of a ecosystem focus, working with some groups or forums, be it some interaction with some educational institutions, or maybe some Coldplay concert tickets which you can offer, in which case I am also willing to join. But yeah, so maybe Ashish, I'll start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Saurabh. I think there are three facets to it in my view. One is, of course, growing the talent. The second one is also in terms of how do we make the most of the talent that we already have in-house. And the third one element is, I'm just touching on what was discussed earlier, that there are GCCs at different phases in terms of their journey in India as such. So there could be some challenges from a brand standpoint. So what could be strategy around that as well to get the right talent, right? So when you talk of growing the talent as such, you're obviously talking of the broader industry. And in my view, there are multiple elements there. So you touched on the academia, for example. So how do we bring that into the curriculum to ensure it is industry ready, for example? Could be in terms of providing internship, which I'm sure a lot of organizations do, as well as organizing hackathons as well, which is what we've seen in the recent times. Similarly, I think it could be around some of the organizations who offer trainings to build that capability amongst people, but also having specialized institutions. For example, you've got a FinTech Institute and Innovation Hub in Gift City. So do we have such organizations coming up where you can have some very specialized focused trainings as such? And then of course you also spoke about the industry forums where you do the cyber siksha, women in tech, these kind of initiatives as well. I think on top of it, it's also about looking at are there people with allied skills within the organization? How are you upskilling them so that they can get into cyber, into the cutting edge technology kind of? So I think those are some elements I would look at from a growing the talent perspective. And also, sorry, one more important thing which you would have seen is return to career program for people who have taken a break. While let them off the grid kind of when they've taken a break, how can we enable them, bring them back into the mainstream? And equally, if you see, I think the government is also pushing a lot in terms of the GCC framework to see how we can expand into tier 2, tier 3 cities as well, because that then expands or widens your net as well. Moving on to how do you make the most, I think Javed touched on AI, right? How AI can be a force multiplier, because that can mean you need less people because you're getting more done with the same number of people. The other element I feel is the nature of the job is quite stressful because you don't want to have breaches. You are constantly, the threats are evolving. So how do you keep on top of it? Which means people get fatigued, they get burnout over a period of time. So what kind of culture are we building, which is what was touched on as well, because that can enable people to keep going. So if you particularly see a lot of GCCs do that, particularly in the operations area where the job is quite routine, mundane, and they try and build the culture in a very different way, which kind of enables people to not get fatigued as such because of the nature of the job that is involved. And then equally, it's also the value proposition that you're offering as an organization, which helps you to attract the talent. Yes, there could be shortage in the industry, but what kind of culture you have, the policies you have as an organization, the opportunities you're giving to people in terms of leadership or the international exposure, I think those are the elements. And lastly, the third point that I touched on around the brand value perception, I think that's where a lot of GCCs are also working with the likes of Big Four to go for the build, operate, transfer model, for example, to help them tide over that period. Or we were already discussing also as outside in terms of how some organizations to start with outsource the work, but then over a period of time look to in-source it. So I think those are some elements I'll want to say that they play a key role. Of course, third parties have a role to play as well, especially where you have to flex up, flex down. But I think these are some of the levers that I see us using as an industry.
So, on talent, there's always, as you said, we're all fighting for the same talent. My view is more larger, not only with cyber, but predominantly technology skills, is that there is, you'll be surprised that every third engineer in the country doesn't get a job, but actually they are qualified. They have the right skill, they have the right knowledge. And, for us as a country, do you want to compete for the same talent and not be successful and always run the risk of losing talent? Or do you want to make some investment upfront and build talent and, invest in that talent? And because that talent is more hungry, that talent is more committed, that talent is very keen to prove themselves. And that's why this whole debate, which is linked to now talent is tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. I think some bold calls required here, else, as you rightly said, it's going to be a red ocean, and it's up to us whether we want to choose red ocean or blue ocean. There's no right or wrong answer here. I think it's a strategy of the organization.
Sure. I think one of the things which I did mention in the first part of the question was the whole operating model is changing and changing fast. So people who are doing quote unquote day-to-day stuff will kind of be lesser and lesser and lesser. So unless you have subject matter expertise, unless you have some really, really different value to show, it will be a problem. And making the people aware, members of the team aware of that, and doing something about it is one of the ways we think is a right way in terms of retaining talent. We spoke about AI for certain business processes. So we keep saying, if you are looking at, let's say, an IPO process, if GS is working on an IPO process, what are the 26 sub-processes involved? Which of these 26 processes lends itself to an AI adoption? If that is the case, what are the data and plumbing issues that you have? So that is how you should start thinking, rather than which LLM I should use. Well, you will use ultimately, but ultimately you're doing all this to solve business problem. So the more you learn about business, the more your careers you are likely to be successful. That's more true than ever at this moment. Obviously, we are doing the usual things in terms of how do we keep on building capabilities in terms of providing labs, providing a number of things to kind of play around, ability to work with new technologies. These are the things that people get kick out of it, and that's we are doing that. Also, from a broad organization point of view, like we have collaborated, well, I'll not take names, but with a fairly reputed institute in Hyderabad, where we have co-developed a curriculum called as Data School, where 3,000 of our engineers have gone through that. And that is being made as a curriculum, and I believe from the way the person who coordinates within GS was saying that they, in a year or two, they will offer it as an independent course as well. So that is something that we are doing. And this year, actually, we are doing at least about 600 to 800 non-engineers take that class as well, who are in the businesses. So these are the ways we believe that you can keep engaging the talent. As you rightly said, it's still a war in terms of talent war is there, but we should do what we can.
So I think great points, amazing coverage. So I have an opinion around, attracting the talent, and while I was thinking about it, I came up of acronym of BYOT, bring your own talent, right? And how could we keep them attracted, keep them motivated? Because everybody is looking to hire some smart guys, right? And while I have few, maybe Saurabh is looking for few, and maybe Ashish is looking for few, right? And there is a scarcity, we all understand that. So how do we keep them motivated, right? And then how do we keep them engaged enough to ensure that my junior folks of a cybersecurity team remains with me as he gets experience, as he gets more exposure, he continues to add value to my organization. So bring your own talent, meaning groom your own kids, groom your own team members, cross-train, ensure that they get enough training in respective interest area, ensure that they're getting enough training and exposure in our pain point, ensure they are enough trained in next-gen technologies and capabilities which keep them engaged. So it's not always about money, it's about how committed is organization, and then what is the commitment from the individual. So groom the individual within the organization to ensure they are baked into the process. They like what they do, and they get enough on their plate in terms of meat which keep them engaged, right? That's one part. Second part is, I think, reverse mentoring. When I say reverse mentoring, is meaning somebody who is experienced enough in cybersecurity and somebody who is a Gen Z guy. So Gen Z guy most probably would have exposure in next-gen capabilities like AI, but somebody who has like 20 years of experience and 15 years of experience doing architecture review. What if they both sit together and do reverse mentoring? Maybe, there's no harm in learning, right? So, both might blend together and get some, both might learn from each other, right? The new kid would learn from the experienced person in the room, and the experienced person can get the mindset of new guys, how they want to be smart enough in the room to get things done, right? And this could lead a lot of collaboration between the team members, I think, and both could get engaged, both could feel the purpose, right? The new generation would feel the purpose of being there, being part of the ecosystem, and be connected. Third is, how do we build a COE kind of environment to keep the kids busy, to keep the team member busy and engaged with the purpose of, some new hackathon. I mean, public hackathon, are they part of it? Internal hackathon, are they seeing value of being part of the hackathon and what the hackathon brings to the table, right? Is it appropriately recognized within the organization? And obviously, last would be, strategic partners with academia, the college, the institutes where we can get, fresh knowledge from the college. They have their own perspective. These are Gen Z, kids, how they look at it, their eagerness to learn and engage, before even they could get placed. They give them projects, that they could do so that they can get a pulse of it. So make them ready for future is what I'm trying to target when we, talk about, partnership with academia. So sort of, I think with that, I would conclude. Those are my few cents in this area.
Thank you, everyone. So, unfortunately, no one took the hint about the Coldplay concert, but I'll let that go now. So, but yeah, I think great ideas. I think starting with, I think the whole, Ashish, you started off talking about how we have to, I think the leveraging the existing skill set, grooming, upskilling, I think that was a common theme probably everyone talked about. How do you elevate the value proposition or the brand of the organization? I think, and that's a great point as well. How do you focus on return to work, women in tech, those kind of forums? I think I'm personally very passionate about that area. So I think great points. I think very humbling thought what you brought, Rishi, about 1/3 of the engineers being jobless. I think makes us wonder what more we can do to kind of embed ourselves earlier into the education cycle. And my personal story, 20 years ago when I did my engineering, I went through the same cycle because when I landed at the job, I had to learn everything on the job, and practically nothing I learned in my engineering was helpful, right? So how can we fix it? And I think a great point, Ram, what you're doing with the Hyderabad example you gave. So hats off to you, 3,000 people. That's a great impact, and now it's being rolled out. So we have got a feedback loop of real life feedback from the organization, from a corporate, going into the course curriculum. I think that's brilliant, right? And going back to Rishi or the red ocean, yes, it is a red ocean. So hopefully there'll be probably more fish for everyone to catch, right, to continue the analogy. And I think the other example, right, Ram, you talked about how to start with the business problem and then figure out how the tech fits in. I think that's super important. Thanks for keeping all of us grounded, right? I think at the end of the day, that's most important. And thanks, Javed, for all the points. First of all, I love your terminology, bring your own talent, right? Something very easy for all of us to remember. And also the rewards mentoring idea, right? How do we inculcate and do knowledge transfer within the team itself? So some great thoughts. So I think, no, thank you everyone. I think got some great insights. The clock is telling me we only have 1.5 minutes. So maybe, do we have time for a couple of questions? Okay, just one question, okay. So anyone from the audience has any question they would like to ask, please feel free. Okay.
So yes, we're just getting the mic there.
So it was a very enlightening session. You spoke about talent engagement and talent development. So GCCs over the years have been growing. So maybe every year, if you grow at a 30% and there was a linear growth in terms of employment. So if you grow with say X amount, so similarly X amount of jobs used to be created. But over the years, because of the automation, because of the AI, the growth is jobless now. So how do you address this problem of having a growth combined with employment opportunities? Because that was what the driving force was for the GCC when it was started maybe 10, 15 years back.
Great point. I mean, anyone wants to take a shot at it?
I think having a mindset of elevation and not elimination in organization, these technology trends would keep coming, right? And we need to be at the same pace. So the thought process needs to be, with this change, how do we elevate ourselves? And this is not just for us. I mean, this is for everybody in the room and the kids coming out of the college and the people. How do they need to? I mean, this is the industry. This is what we have signed up for, right? So, and for us to change the mindset from elimination to elevation, right? How can a thing, how can a, for example, SOC, tier 1 folks can be elevated to the next level, say for example, LLM-based red teaming, rather than saying, oh, AI has come, what do I do? Because today it's AI, tomorrow it would be something else. So I think that's the mindset we need, to be in and to be part of it, to keep continuously learning and continuously elevating ourselves, across the age group, till the time we are in the race. So I mean that would be the thought process. Yeah.
I think if I may just add, I think the other element is, if you look at the quality of the jobs as well, I think that's also getting elevated, like Javed said. So there has to be a mindset shift. As long as we are attuned to that, I think we should be able to adapt, because change will happen whether we like it or not. If you go with the flow, you keep, rather than opposing it, if you go with the flow, keep upskilling yourself, that will enable you to be future ready.
Yeah, apologies if it sounds a bit cliche, but I think you will gravitate towards value and impact rather than how much employability. That is what I would think is the barometer, so to speak. I think, at least for me, I can speak personally, the kick you get when you do something where you contribute to a business problem and that gets deployed, like we have a digital bank, and if I do something specifically on a cyber recommendation in that, and that gets deployed and that is used across by so many people, I think that kick is more than managing 50 more members or 30 more products.
I think maybe time is up, so I'll just sum it up. I think if past is a good indicator of future, technology and human both can coexist. So yeah, we'll have to pivot, as we all spoke about, in terms of upskilling, but I don't see AI will eliminate human race. I don't see that happening.
And that's the evolution which I spoke, that the operating model is changing. So the traditional way in terms of how we operated, that's changing both from a technology as well as from a talent point of view.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't want to be in trouble with DSCI, so I'll call it a day.